Well, it gives me a distinct honor and privilege to introduce our speaker today. Tom Burns is a longtime friend who leads the Governor's Office of Economic Development as Executive Director. I actually got to know Tom well as a fellow parent at Faith Lutheran Middle School, High School here in town. He and his wife of 38 years, Shelley, have two beautiful children, JT, who was in my son's class at Faith, and Megan. Tom's distinguished career has spanned from Deloitte, working as a CPA, to working as a corporate controller at United Gaming, to then spending more than 30 years as an insurance executive in Southern Nevada. His many professional boards include charitable and government-appointed committees, and he served as chair of the Las Vegas Chamber of Commerce for 2 years before being named to the Las Vegas Economic Alliance Board in 2023. He is a UNR graduate. Go to that. Go to that. Go Pat. Go Pat. I got the microphone. Go Pat. And he's the perfect person, in my view, to lead our state's efforts in economic development and diversification. So would you all please give a warm CBN welcome to Tom Burns.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for having me here. I'm excited to be in front of a lot of friends, so it's nice to see all of you. And I want to reiterate my gratitude to the veterans that are here today, and for the service that they gave, and also for the service their families gave. Families serve as well, so thank you to you and your families for the sacrifice you made for our country. As Robin said, I've been on the job now a solid 9 months. I started at the end of January, and there's a lot. There we go. There's a lot to learn coming from private industry and stepping into the governmental role. Some of those things are good, some of them are a little frustrating, but we made a lot of progress. I think we're going to see some good things coming out of in the next 3 or 4 months that we'll be able to announce. So that's me. So Robin already told you more about me than you need to know. Our goal, our purpose, the reason that you pay my salary is for my agency to diversify the economy of the state of Nevada. As you probably all know, we are really heavily dependent on the hospitality industry, and the hospitality industry has been amazing in Nevada. And we're not by any stretch of the imagination here to replace or just displace the hospitality industry. Couldn't do it if I wanted to, and I don't want to. Right? It's our identity. It's a lot of who we are. We do some pretty amazing things in this city. This 7-mile stretch of road just down the street is probably the most amazing economic engine in our country about what it's able to do and provide for families and do a lot of great things. I do think it's a great opportunity, though, for us to provide different options for employment for our families, as well as the ability to broaden the tax base. I think my friends in gaming and the hospitality industry would be happy to hear that somebody else is bearing the freight, so that every time there's a need in the state of Nevada, it doesn't come up to just raising taxes on gaming. So that's what our goal is, and it's centered around good jobs. And I'll be going into that for just a minute. So here we go. So since the beginning of this year, we've attracted 17 different companies. We provided almost 4,500 jobs with annual payroll of $335 million, and brought about $4 billion in capital investment to the state of Nevada, which will result in almost $940 million in additional tax revenue to our state. Yeah. So you can see how this additional how the tax incentives have impacted our state. I'm going to go over the nature of what our tax incentives are and aren't. This is a difficult conversation sometimes with my 63 friends that meet in Carson City for 5 months every other year, because some of them have a basic understanding, many don't, right? And so, for many of the newer legislators, they're finding out from the older legislators, and I likened it to your 5th grade son learning about sex at school. He's probably not getting the right answer, right? Because not learn from a source that understands the process very well. But you can see here that we've abated about $2.4 billion in the last 2 years, or I'm sorry, the last 12 years in taxes. But that has resulted in $6 billion in additional tax revenue over and above what was abated for the state of Nevada, and has had an economic impact of almost $250 billion in that same period of time. One of the things I like to point out, and I think is really impactful for us, is what we've been able to do with the hourly average wage in the state of Nevada. So if you look on the far left of that graph that's there, you can see that, and then you compare it to where we are now. You see that we've raised the average wage to almost $36 an hour. So about a year ago, I got a phone call from a man that's a friend of mine that I grew up in, who had been a speaker here. His name is Mark Hutchison. Hutch and I grew up together, went to junior high together and high school together. And he called me up and asked me if I was interested in working in the governor's administration. And you heard my background a little bit, and he said, "Do you want to be insurance commissioner?" I said, "No." One, because I've just never been a bureaucrat or a regulator, and that's not, I will tell you, the gentleman that's doing that job right now does a pretty good job. He's a good right man for the job. But I was also in such a spot that if I was going to go to work in this part of the world, I wanted to make sure I did something for the state of Nevada. Because the state of Nevada has been remarkably kind to me and my family. And I was talking to Mark, and I said, "You know, Mark, if I was going to do something, I'd like to go to work in economic development, because it's about bringing good quality jobs to Nevada. And if you can bring a good job to a family, it's more than the economic value. I'm not downplaying the economic value, that's a big deal. But more than that, it does a lot for the self-esteem of a family, right? So if you have a good job and you're able to take care of your family, you know that you put a jacket on your kid's back when it's cold outside, and a warm meal on the table at night for dinner, and a roof over their head to sleep underneath, right? And that does a tremendous amount for the self-esteem of any family. And if we can do that 4, 5, 6, 8, 10 times, then you raise the self-esteem of a community. And if we do that, we all live in a better place, right? So this is more than just bringing good jobs to Nevadans, but it's elevating our entire communities and the place that we live in. And I think we're able to do that and show that we're improving upon that, as you see the hourly wage rise up as it is. So you hear a lot about, if you follow MySpace a little bit, we make the paper a lot. Usually it's around people like Elon Musk or Redwood Materials, and we get criticized a lot for giving money away to billionaires. I will also tell you those billionaires have choices about where they place their companies and where they go to work. The average wage at the Tesla Panasonic plant is $106,000 a year. And that's for a lot of folks that probably don't have post-secondary education as far as having a degree of any sort, whether it's associate's or a bachelor's degree. One of the things that our agency is able to do is we're able to give training primarily through the community college system, in which we work with our new employers that come to town, and we create a curriculum that they say they need, that we help pay for, and is administered primarily through CSN in Southern Nevada, and then in Northern Nevada, Truckee Meadows Community College and Western Nevada Community College. And if you think about, I think that's one of the great successes that Nevada has seen. You know, as we go out and recruit companies to the state of Nevada, if we have somebody that comes here that says, "Hey, you know, I need you to produce 35 PhDs a year in my space." Look, we have two fine research institutes in this state. We just don't have the girth to do that on a regular basis, right? But what we can do on a regular basis is provide outstanding training to bring our citizens up to a standard of training and skill that they did not have before. If you think back to 2011, there were not very many, if any, residents of the state of Nevada that had advanced manufacturing acumen or skills. There are 14,000 people that now work at the Panasonic and Tesla plant that have those skills, and they're a result of the partnership between the state of Nevada, community college system, and their employer. And so I think that is a great success and something for us to be really proud of. And I guess where I was, what the slide was supposed to talk about, is I talked about the larger companies that we get paid. What we find is that all of 92% of the companies that we provided tax incentives to employed less than 150 people. So a lot of smaller companies coming primarily from California, relocating here, and providing good jobs to Nevadans. You can see what happened here. One of the reasons that we push economic development so hard is when we went through the Great Recession here in Southern Nevada, and most of you know that Southern Nevada was hit as hard or harder than any other place in the country except for maybe Naples, Florida, right? And so that was a rough time in our history. We also had a tough time during the pandemic. Our unemployment reached over 30%. We lost, there are 20,000 jobs that were in the hospitality industry that to this day have not come back, and I would argue probably aren't coming back. They've been by and large replaced by either technology or other efficiencies. And so if we can provide jobs in Nevada that are a little asecular, in other words, they don't follow the economy and the need for spending discretionary income as much as what the hospitality industry relies on, we can provide some ballast not only in our economy but and in our tax base. So here you can this again shows the same conversation I had that we currently are a pro-secular economy. When the economy goes bad in the rest of the country, we do too. I would say I grew up like many of you here in Nevada, as Robin pointed out. I've been here for a minute. I remember when the Governor List was governor, so Governor, nice to see you. Thank you for your service. When I was a kid, we used to say that when the rest of the country caught a cold, we'd sneeze. Or when the rest of the country caught the flu, we caught a mild cold, because we were late into it and we were really early out of it. But then something funny happened about 20 years ago. Everybody else thought the gaming kind of became cool. That all that money that was such dirty money all the time that I was growing up isn't such a bad thing anymore. And they built some pretty nice casinos in other parts of the world. Now again, nothing that competes with that 7-mile stretch down the road, but there's a way to scratch that itch. Now if you just want to run away for the weekend, you can probably drive 75 or 50 miles away from your house if you just want to go spend the night at a casino and play some slots and have a dinner and spend money that way. And so when in the last 15 years, as we've hit cyclical downturns, as people started to get a little bit of that money coming back, rather than jumping on a plane and coming here, a lot of the times they were just getting in their car and driving to the local casino and spending that money. And so as a result, we've tended to be earlier into economic downturns and certainly stayed in them longer than a lot of other parts of the country. So I'm just a regular public school guy, right? I went to Bonanza High School with Mel, and I went to UNR as Robin said. So I had 4 PhDs that worked for me. That's unbelievable. And so one of them put together this slide, and it's about the only way it's explained is by having them explain it. But what this tells you, this slide, is that on the far upper hand where it says mature, you have a big blue ball there. And what that tells you is that we have a mature industry called hospitality. It's the biggest part of our industry, the biggest part of our state. It dominates our state, but it's not growing at a high level. It's kind of at where it's at, is what that's telling you. And if you look to the other balls that are along those lines, you see that we have some other industries that are growing within our state. One of the things that we experienced about 12 years ago, especially in Northern Nevada, hospitality industry had struggled for an awful long time. It hadn't, by and large, invested in itself very well. I've said this in Northern Nevada too, but it hadn't. And those Native American casinos that were built in Northern California were really pretty attractive, especially if you had to drive across the mountains in the middle of February, where it was hard to get to. And so by and large, those folks in Northern California just stayed home and stayed close. And so we have a copy of the newspaper headline that was in the Reno Gazette-Journal that hangs in the Northern Nevada office that says, "Is Reno the next Detroit?" Because it was struggling, it was rough. And one of the things that happened over those next couple of years was kind of serendipitous, but one, they realized that the need to diversify their economy, and they became very, very aggressive about it. Two, there were two gentlemen that lived in Story County. How many of you know where Story County is? Raise your hand. Okay. Anybody? Okay, Robin, you're out of this conversation. But anybody name the county seat of Story County? Okay, thanks, Governor. That's all. Wow. All right. I will say many times in the Southern Nevada conversation, that's not always that question's not often asked. But the two gentlemen from Story County had 3,200 acres, and they thought, you know what? I wonder if I invest $100 million of my own money into infrastructure there to bring in roads and water and sewer, if I could create an industrial park. And they did that. It's called TRIC, the Tahoe Reno Industrial Center. And it's the largest industrial center in the United States. And son of a gun, it worked. I'm not sure I did bet $100 million on my money or Chuck's money. I'm not making Chuck's money. But 100 on that gamble. But all of a sudden, Tesla and Panasonic showed up. And then Google showed up. And then Apple showed up. And then distribution centers for companies like Walmart and Target and major other retail centers showed up. And now it is one of the, it is the largest major employer of that space in our state, certainly, and is really part of the envy of really the western part of the United States. Its location right on the I-80, which runs from the Bay Area all the way to the East Coast, allows distribution of goods throughout the nation. It has affordable power. One of the challenges, my friends in Northern Nevada, I think if I provide another job for them right now, I might get hung in effigy, because it's putting a lot of strains on the roads and their schools and a lot of other social services that we need to address, but we have the ability to provide that diversification, and it's meant a lot to the lifestyle there. To give you a perspective, and I think you probably could come to this math, but I'll bring it obvious. You know, just to have the impact that the Tesla Panasonic plant had in Northern Nevada, to have in Southern Nevada, I would need to find a manufacturing plant that had 45,000 jobs in it. And so there's some work to be done there. Again, not that we have to get to that spot or displace them, but it's about having opportunities and other people to share in our good fortune. So our plan for, GOED's plan for the state of Nevada is to provide Nevada's economic, innovative, and connected future. We talked a little bit about logistics already that happened off the I-80 corridor. We have those same opportunities here because of I-15 and our proximity to the Long Beach port. Right? We have the ability to look at inland ports and get goods here, and so that's an area that we're pursuing. As you may know, we're the only state in the country that has the ability to do a full lithium loop. So we have the only active lithium mine in the United States right now. There are 3 more on the boards that should be pretty active here in the next couple of years. The largest of which is on the Nevada-Oregon border, just north of Winnemucca, about an hour. And so we have the ability to produce that natural resource, to process that natural resource, to put it into a battery. That's what happens at the Panasonic location. And then to put that battery into a car that's made there. Most of the car that Tesla provides out of that is actually made in Nevada. Its cage, its interior, the driveline, all of that's made in Nevada. The skin is put on in California, so it's shipped over there. So we're able to do that. And then once that battery dies, that car dies, we're able to recycle it in Nevada and take all the critical minerals that are in that and get it back on the road again. So we are able to take something from cradle to grave into resurrection. Right? So a little bit of resurrection here. And so that's a pretty exciting thing. And so I think those are areas where Nevada will continue to shine and really lead the country in a lot of ways. We talked about that. So we have some different tools in our toolbox. I talked a little bit about workforce development and the success we have there and the ability to train Nevadans to bring on good jobs. I will tell you, when you're working in the legislature, look, there are always going to be varying opinions, right? And that's actually a healthy thing. As frustrating as it can be, it is awfully a healthy thing. If you're forced to ask tough questions, much like you do in your faith life, if you're forced to ask a tough question in your faith life, maybe if you can't answer it, maybe you ought to look harder at your faith, right? Well, if I'm asked tough questions about what I'm doing for economic development for the state of Nevada, if I can't answer that question very well, then maybe I ought to look harder at what I'm really trying to do, and my convictions. And so you had a lot of that. I will share with you one of my frustrations, probably my largest one, is I sat in a committee and watched the training dollars that were budgeted for $24 million be cut to $10 million. And I will tell you a lot of it, I think, is because of the gentleman that I work for and the letter after his name. I don't have a different answer for that because I don't understand taking away education and training from the students. You can get mad at me, or I'll have the conversation about me giving money to Elon Musk and what that did. I'm fine with it. I'll defend that. And I have conversations about why we incentivize people to come to Nevada. I'm fine with that. I don't understand at any level why we cut funding that was available, by the way, to take Nevadans from a job where they pay $18 or $19 an hour. By the way, for those that do that, they're hardworking people. They're making an honest living. But we have the ability to lift up their spot in life to where they're eligible for a job that pays $35 or $42 or $45 an hour, and there you go. That's frustrating. So we do a lot. We have the ability to help out rural Nevada too. We have some national grants that we have two folks in our office that travel the state of Nevada pretty much on a regular basis that help invest in rural downtown Nevada. So as you see improvements to places like Minden and Gardnerville, and we've done some work in Ely, as well as, we're doing some work in Caliente and Tonopah, and so those do a lot to raise up the appearance of those great communities and give folks a reason to stop in, and those are great parts of Nevada. I talked a little bit. I'm going to talk a little bit more about our tax incentives. So there we go. So let me talk about what they are. They're statutory. They're partial abatements. They have a specific period of time, and I'm going to go into this just as an example here shortly. There are standards that they have to reach. I'll tell you what those are. We do audit them. They're vetted for a positive impact and a positive return on investment. So let me tell you what I cannot do, and right or wrong, right? So I'm not telling you that you should be able to do this. I'm just telling you that this is what it's not. I don't have the ability to write anybody a check to come to the state of Nevada. I don't have a pot of funds that sits somewhere and says, hey, if you'll come here, I'll write this check for this size. And a lot of our neighboring states do, right? They do. So my friends in Arizona do, my friends in Utah do, my friends in Texas do. And you may say, hey, Tom, I don't want you to have that. I'm just telling you what it is. So this goes back, at least you know what the story is and what the story is. So we don't have the ability to do that. What I do have the ability to do is to abate or provide a discount on future tax issues. So let's say my good friend Robin is coming to the state of Nevada and he says, Tom, I'm going to invest, I have a manufacturing plant, and I'm going to invest $10 million in a building. And because in Clark County, in urban counties, which this is always a funny thing about Nevada, that's really Washoe and Clark. So Washoe and Clark County, you have to invest at least $5 million in capital expenditures. You have to have at least 50 employees that you're bringing with you over the period of time. You have to pay above the state average wage, and you have to provide health insurance to your employees. Okay? So Robin says, that's great, I'll do all those things, right? So what I can do for Robin is that I can reduce his property taxes by 50% for 5 years. So let's say Robin's property tax is $150. For 5 years, he's going to pay $75. At the end of 5 years, he has to pay the $150 like everybody else does. I can reduce his MBT by 50% for 5 years as well. So again, whatever that is, that calculation is, we can reduce it by 50% at the end of 5 years. It goes back to what everybody else is paying. And I can reduce his sales tax to 2% from what it is whatever county he is. Now, what you also need to know about that number is that number just gets Nevada back to competitive, because 43 other states in the United States don't charge sales tax on manufacturing equipment. And so as they're building new manufacturing facilities in Arizona or Utah, or Texas, there is no sales tax on manufacturing equipment in those states. And so as we're abating sales tax, we're just getting it to equal, right? We're just getting to where everybody else is. And you can argue about whether we should or shouldn't. I'm just telling you those are the numbers, and that's the playground that I'm playing. So we do, and as this says, every two, we work in conjunction with the Department of Taxation, and at the second year and the 5-year, all of those folks are audited. If they don't meet the standards that we set out in the agreement, we have the ability to claw back and collect those taxes back, and we do. We have a 98% collection rate. We had one company that is in bankruptcy that we will probably get money from them probably by the end of next year. It's a process, but we do a pretty good job. And so this tells you what they aren't, right? It's not a complete break on taxes, so I can't get taxes to zero. There's no check written to a company. It's not negotiated between the state, me, and the company. I can't decide that I like the sporting good manufacturer, but I don't like the face cream manufacturer, and as a result, I'm going to give more money to the sporting good manufacturer than the face cream manufacturer. It doesn't work that way. If you meet the criteria and you fit in that spot, then it's just math. It's just a calculation that we do. Some of that's good. Most of that's good. Every once in a while, it's a little frustrating, but because maybe some things sneak through that we might not in its entirety want to. So, and again, nothing's abated in perpetuity. It all has a life, right? So how do we know the companies are compliant? As I said, we do the audit 2 and 5 years, and we have a 97% recapture rate. Other things, and this goes back to the abatements that we do have. We talked a lot about this already. The other thing is that 50% of your revenue has to be in exports. And the reason for that is that we're trying to create jobs here in Southern Nevada that are paid for by somebody else. We're really good about that in Nevada, by the way. We like other people to pay our taxes, other people to pay a lot of stuff. So, but there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, if you can export that and the jobs are paid for by another state, that means that they're funded from another state, and ideally most of that money swirls around in our community. So there's more money swirling around the community, and when you have a velocity of money, and you know that if you're business people, velocity money means that everybody's a little bit better off. Wages are tied to unemployment, so if we're in a rougher economic environment, we have the ability to adjust the standards back a little bit to given where unemployment is and provide better employment for those areas. So, additional abatements. Aviation, really haven't done a lot since there was a lot of activity in the aviation space when it first opened up. We haven't really done a lot in that in the last 10 years. Data centers, I think we're going to start to see an uptick in those. There's a lot of technology. Southern Nevada kind of waned a little bit because the older technology required a lot of water to cool data systems, and that's just not an asset we have. I will say Southern Nevada Water Authority has done an amazing job providing security. We are the only community on the Colorado River that has a security plan around what water we have available. So I like to tell the people that we're recruiting, look, if I promise you a gallon of water in 5 years, I promise a gallon of water that we've accounted for that. Does that mean we can't do some things? That means we can't do some things, right? We don't want water bottling plants here. We had a manufacturing system that needed 8,000 gallons a minute in their plants, and we can't provide you that. But there are a lot of things we can do, and when we can tell you we can do it for a very long time. We promise you that. The $1 billion plan was initially known as the Faraday plan. Faraday was a electric car manufacturer that was going to be built out at Apex. It had Chinese interest in it. That fell apart. But it is the plan that was used to fund the Redwood Materials. Redwood Materials is a Nevada-based company. Nevada founded. They're the battery recycling manufacturer. It's based in Trick in northern Nevada. And then the $2.5 billion plan is what Tesla used to go forward. By the way, those abatements aren't particular to Tesla or to Redwood. Their names don't appear in the legislation. Any company comes to town and provides the same financial package that they provided, they're eligible for the same opportunity. We do disclose, we signed a non-disclosure agreement on technical and proprietary information prior to the approval of their abatements. Transferable tax credits, I apologize. Oftentimes those are, we don't use those a lot in Nevada. That is what the conversation that centers around the film industry would be about. That is writing a check, that's giving a coupon for the forgiveness of taxes at some point that you can sell to somebody else. And so, I'm happy to answer questions around that later on. And there you go. Thank you. I appreciate being here. I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody has. Yeah, Chuck.
Chuck, we have a microphone.
Well, I don't need one, do I?
Chuck doesn't
Probably
need
not,
one.
but here. So
All right, I'll
everyone else
be
can hear
patient.
you.
Don't worry. Let's stand up too. So, all right, anyway. Hey, Tom, you mentioned two sources of economic value. One is the I-80 corridor that created that, right? And then you also mentioned the 15 corridor, right?
Right.
And is there any further development or discussions on the I-11 corridor to create that linear link between the northern part of the United States and the southern part of the United States? And is that an economic engine you can build on?
Yes and yes.
Oh, I feel better now.
Yes. So you know that we've built our portion from Boulder City up into Las Vegas is going to continue along by and large the path that 95 takes up through Reno, and then we'll go on up into probably Fort Worth, is what I'm hearing now. And yes, that's going to be that's a minute, and yes, it'll be a remarkably valuable tool when it happens. We need our friends in Arizona to start building their portion of it, because they haven't got on the stick yet there for us to do that. But that would allow our second largest import partner, or maybe third, is Mexico for the United States, and so the ability to bring those goods up through Arizona, up through Nevada, and to be able to distribute them will be a huge deal. It's just going to take some time. I see.
So, have you had any success with the motion picture industry here? I know a lot of people talk about that.
It's kind of a hot topic, right? Limited, right? I would say the law that as it's written now is not going to attract a lot of folks. It's not. Its size is fine for smaller independent films. The rules around it are a little rough because it requires that 60% of the filming be done here in Nevada. And for a lot of things, that just doesn't work. And so that's as it is today. I know that there was a lot of discussion in the last session about film bills. They were rough economically. So I told you that I got beat up pretty good about giving money to Elon Musk, but when we gave $1 to Tesla, they gave us back $5.50. And that's Tesla, by the way. That's not Tesla's employees, that's not other businesses that were working with Tesla. Tesla gave us back $5.50. My friends in the motion picture industry would like me to give them $1 so they can give me back 42 cents. And they'd like me to do it for 20 years, and they'd like me to guarantee $200 million a year to do it. So that math needs to change for me to get very excited about that, right? So anyway, look, they're good jobs, and there's a lot. There's a lot to be supportive of there, but the economics for our state have to change for that to work.
So that I know that the key factor to economic development is also education. And right now, I know Clark County Schools is sitting, I heard 50th right now. Is there anything you guys can do to help your friends in charge of the school systems to get their act together?
So the legislature and the governor approved the largest increase in the funding of education by any measure in the history of the state at the last legislature. So, the funding model I'm not sure the funding money will ever be adequate for those that criticize the funding money. But the funding as it is substantially more in line with what we would have expected to be. Right? You know that Washoe County came to an agreement with their teachers. That hasn't happened yet in Clark County at this point. But I think from those that are saying, well, we got to fund education and move along, those things have been addressed at some level, right? And I would expect it as a taxpayer and somebody that raised 2 kids here in this valley that those metrics would improve over that period of time, right?
Speaking of education and tying into tax credits, abatements, not being able to write a check, could you clarify a little bit about the Oakland A's coming here and what they received or did not receive?
I think it's a foregone conclusion they're coming, but you don't want to count your chickens before they're hatched. The owners have to vote on that. My understanding is they're voting on it this month. That's the last hurdle to come over, right? From the state of Nevada, they received abatements. I'm going to be off by $1 here or two, but of about $198 million over a period of time, and they received $25 million or $110 million from Clark County with a $25 million essentially credit backstop. The Oakland A's are going to invest about $1.3 billion into that asset. So anything that's not funded that I just described by Clark County or the state of Nevada is funded by the owner of the Oakland A's, and the county of Clark will be the owner of that asset when it's done. Allegiant Stadium had kind of the same model. It is the most successful asset in that space in the country by a mile. SoFi Stadium, which was built about the same time as Allegiant, is the number 2, and it's about 60% of the success rate of Allegiant is now. Can I promise you the same thing that's going to happen in the baseball stadium? I guess I can't because it's a different model, right? The repayment on that, at least on most of the economic modeling, is about 3 to 1. So for every $1 that taxpayers have invested, they should expect to get $3 back in tax revenue. I'm not trying to. I want to make sure I answered your question.
Well, it's just the difference between we didn't write them a check, they're getting this abatement,
Right.
but it's going to come back to us in multiple.
It is, and to be fair, the sales tax that is used to fund those abatements is only generated at that space, right? So it's only generated at the baseball park. So, but for the baseball, I know one of the criticisms is, well, why didn't we put that money into education? Well, that revenue is only generated on that corner, and if we don't put that asset on that corner, that revenue is not generated. So we didn't steal money from education to build a baseball park, because but for that asset, it doesn't exist, right?
If you could address just real quickly, one of the first slides we had up there was 14, 17 something, 17 during last year. How do you find those companies? Right, when you walk up to Elon Musk and say, hey, come over
Hey,
here.
Hey, Elon, I'm Tom.
Yeah, Tom, come over.
Yeah, I'm charming. Yeah. That is probably not how it happened. Well, there are a couple different ways. One, we do have, in our model in the state of Nevada, we have GoEd, and through our office, we fund 8 different RDAs, Regional Development Authorities. And so locally, we have LVGEA, Las Vegas Global Economic Alliance. And Tina Quigley and her crew do a great job of going out and meeting people in Northern Nevada. We have EDON, which is the Eastern Economic Development. We need one more acronym. Economic Development of Western Nevada. And they have been remarkably aggressive in that space about going out and seeking companies throughout California and other spots that want to relocate there. So we push funding down to them as if somebody comes into our office, we'll work through them early on, but we partner almost immediately with our RDAs. They're a quasi-economic development, or quasi-business, a quasi-governmental entity. I'm not. So there are things that I can't do that they have the flexibility to do. So it's good to have that partnership going on. So yeah, and we're, to be honest with you, we're in the process of being a little more aggressive in that space from both sets of offices. So I can hang around for a minute or two afterwards. I know you've got other places to be. Been very honored to be in front of you today. Thank you very much.
Tom, thank you so very much. Next month, I just want to announce that we'll have Corwin Anthony. He'll be our speaker in December. Corwin is the head chaplain for the NFL, and he oversees all the chaplains for all the teams. He's also overseeing, in conjunction with Athletes in Action, a breakfast that's the day before the Super Bowl at Caesar's Palace. We'll share a little bit about that, but it's an outreach opportunity to the community involving a lot of current players, former players, coaches, etc. And he just has an amazing testimony, and just he'll share a lot about how all of you too could maybe get involved with the Super Bowl breakfast, which is kind of cool. So at this time, Gene Nakanishi, who is on our board and the owner of Osaka Restaurant, he's going to close us in prayer. Gene.
Father God, we're just grateful that we can come together today as a Christian businessman. We realize that everything is always in your hands. You foreordained everything that happens in our lives. We just ask that you continue to be with all of us in this room to help us to shine a light in our community and continue to show people that, Lord, that we need to turn to you in all things, especially in the state of which our country is in today, and the state of which the world itself is. But we know who you are, Lord. You're God of mercy, you're God of truth, you're God of goodness and kindness. That's why we turn to you, and we realize that all our endeavors, whether it's in business or in our everyday lives, that you're in charge, and we allow you to just come into our lives and to help us, Lord, to guide and direct us and to do everything for your glory. So we ask that you be with every one of our businessmen and women here today, that you continue to bless their efforts in providing for their families, and just bless them in whatever need that you have or they have, and help us to continue to keep focused on what you're all about, and that's about the gospel, and that's, you've already promised us that you will provide everything for us as long as we focus on that. It's a promise from you, and we can stand on that. And we do love you, and let us pray in your precious Son's name, Christ Jesus. Amen.
Thank you, Gene. God bless you all. Have a great rest of your day.